Over the course of thousands of years, astrology has taken on many different meanings. Astrology has meant many different things to various cultures and civilizations around the world. At different times, astrology has been considered a religion. In certain eras of human history, astrology has even been subscribed to as a science. Then in other seasons, astrology has fallen from grace and been dismissed as a pseudoscience, a bunch of make-believe, or a bunch of useless junk. Here at Masters of the Zodiac, our job isn't to draw conclusions about whether astrology deserves the same respect that, say, physics or chemistry gets. That's not what we're here to do today. Today, we're just going to take a short walk down history lane to see where astrology came from and leave it to your discretion as to how to best proceed from here. Knowing a brief history of astrology is critical to becoming a master of the Zodiac. We need to know this history because only when we know from whence we came can we truly appreciate where it is in the future that we're going. Plus, stick around and find out at the end of this video what the mysterious phrase Arpsik Rokaida means. No, I'm not speaking in tongues. So let's explore astrology, uncover mysteries, and let's use this knowledge to unlock destinies, if it's possible.
The stars were here many years before us, and they'll be here many years after we're gone. We study the stars so that you can be free to uncover mysteries and unlock your destiny.
Hello, and welcome to Masters of the Zodiac, where we explore astrology, uncover mysteries, and ultimately seek to help you unlock your destiny. This episode completes our series of introductory videos for what should be considered as the ABCs of astrology. Today, we're going to provide you with a brief history of astrology and hopefully help answer some of your burning questions about the origins of astrology. How seriously should astrology be taken? Is it a pseudoscience? Is it a hoax? Is it satanic to study astrology? Is it a pagan religion? Is it a religion at all? The first question is, where did it all begin? To answer this question, we'll need to get in the time machine and go back about 300,000 years. It is said that the first modern humans evolved into existence somewhere between 200 to 300,000 years ago in Africa. From there, these first modern humans, groups of these Africans began migrating out of Africa anywhere between 70 to 100,000 years ago. From scientific and anthropological findings, we know that about 50,000 years ago, the language skills of modern humans began to take shape in the form of making plans and solving problems. One such problem that early humans faced was understanding the timing of seasons and when to prepare for Mother Nature to take her course and for weather patterns to change. To help predict the extremes of weather, our ancestors would monitor the phases of the moon and the positions of the stars. They did this over the course of centuries, and thus these early humans began discerning specific patterns of stars and cycles of the moon in the nightly sky that aligned to our seasons. About 34,000 years ago, they began recording these cycles on the bones and tusks of mammals, such as the woolly mammoth. In doing so, they effectively laid the earliest foundation for what we know today as astrology. So that's where it began. Astrologers and historians collectively agree that the roots of Western astrology as we know them today were planted some 5,000 to 6,000 years ago in the early river valley civilizations. Let's start in Africa, in Egypt. The Nile River Valley civilization saw much innovation in the ways of astrology. In fact, the Egyptians are known for being the first people to use a person's date of birth as a basis for telling what a person's character would be like. For each month and day, the Egyptians ascribed a deity aligning to the pattern of stars in the sky seen at night. If you were born under the Egyptian sky god of the Scorpion, then that meant you would have certain personality traits and characteristics all the days of your life. These Egyptian sky gods aligned to the modern day zodiac, whereas one Egyptian deity was a sheep. Today we know that zodiac sign as the ram or Aries. Some of the earliest star charts were made by Egyptian astrologers as early as 4200 BC, more than 6,000 years ago. And just a short 1900 years ago, there was an Egyptian mathematician and astrologer, Claudius Ptolemy, who would write what is considered as the Bible of astrology. That book was called Tetrabiblos, which in some circles is still considered the most influential astrology book ever written. The book characterizes the elements of fire, earth, air, and water. Plus it defines the aspects of birth charts, like conjunctions, oppositions, and trines. These are the aspects that are used to interpret horoscopes to this day. However, innovations were not limited to the Nile River Valley civilization. In the Mesopotamia River Valley civilization, The Sumerians or Babylonians also took note of the lunar cycles as it related to the ebb and flow of their rivers and seasonal changes impacting their farming and agriculture. They began to worship the moon, the sun, and the star of Venus as benefactors of their seasons and protectors from famine. As other planets were discovered, Mercury, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn, these planets were also worshipped for having specific attributes. Mars for war, Venus for love, Jupiter for expansion and growth, and Saturn for restriction and discipline. And so we quickly see that astrology was their religion and thus one of the earliest religions, perhaps the original religion. The Babylonians get credit for inventing the modern zodiac because they effectively divided the sky into 12 parts for which we have the 12 zodiac signs designated. The ancient Babylonian calendar was based on 12 months, which corresponded to 12 lunar cycles, and the specific alignment of the stars which were prominent in the nightly sky through each of those 12 divisions took on characteristics that have remained until this day. The Babylonians also specified 12 houses to govern various aspects of life, be they your self-appearance, your family relationships, your career status, and your health. The signs and the house systems of the Mesopotamian River Valley civilization are the key pieces of the zodiac that we use to this day. From ancient Babylon, we could venture east to India and to China and also discover how their astrology was similar, yet distinctly different from Western astrology. We'll see that the Chinese or Indian or Vedic astrology are based on Eastern philosophies, yet remain somehow connected back to the origins in the other River Valley civilizations. The Indian zodiac shares the same number of signs as the Western zodiac. Vedic astrology also has 12 zodiac signs. The key difference is that Indians use the moon as the basis of their astrology. For Indian astrology, lunar cycles take precedence over solar cycles. It's the opposite for Western astrology, where the sun is the key determinant of the Western zodiac. In ancient China, from the earliest times of the great Buddha and the foundations of Buddhism, the Chinese zodiac has been based on 12 years as opposed to 12 monthly cycles. Each year is represented by a different animal: the rat, the ox, the tiger, the rabbit, the dragon, the snake, the horse, the ram, the monkey, the chicken, the dog, and the boar. Chinese astrology also has the extra added element of metal in addition to the elements of earth, wind, fire, and water that would apply to the Western zodiac. With all of that said, today you'll find hybrids where people hyphenate their Western zodiac in parallel with their Chinese zodiac based on their year of birth. So you would find Scorpio tigers, Gemini dragons, or Taurus dogs if you look for them. So that's just a quick look in juxtaposition of how astrology bubbled up in the River Valley civilizations in Africa, China, India, and Mesopotamia. One key takeaway that you should know: all of these innovations in astrology were cross-pollinating as groups migrated and traded across regions. But the vehicle which spread astrology fastest was the instrument of war and foreign conquerors who assimilated those whom they conquered. In 331 BC, Alexander the Great conquered the Middle East. And with that, the Greeks moved into the forefront, assimilating cultures. Greek became the common language, but the Greeks also absorbed the astrological underpinnings from the Babylonians and Egyptians who they conquered. This is also the beginning of an evolution of astrology from being perceived not only as a religion, but also as a science. Following the Greeks, the Romans emerged as conquerors, and we see that they too respected astrology, but took their astrology with a grain of salt. There are stories that the Roman Emperor Julius Caesar had received the horoscope in 44 BC that may have ultimately averted his assassination, helped him avoid it, but Caesar chose to ignore it. While the earlier Babylonians and Egyptians placed their priests of astrology on high pedestals, we see that the Romans treated their astrologers a bit differently. It is said that the Roman Emperor Tiberius, who lived in the first decades of the 1st century AD, it's said that Tiberius believed in astrology, but did not trust astrologers. If Tiberius didn't like the forecast that a certain astrologer gave him, he'd literally have that astrologer thrown off of a cliff. So it's fair to say that the Romans did have trust issues with their astrologers. As one historian said, the Romans were both fascinated and frightened by astrology. Fast forward a few centuries and we can look back and see how empires rose and fell, and also the subsequent cultural impact that accompanies their rise and fall. About 300 years after Jesus of Nazareth was crucified on the outskirts of Jerusalem, we find that Christianity has begun taking root throughout the Roman Empire and the territories under its rule. By the year 364 AD, prominent Christian priests such as St. Augustine began condemning astrology as subverting Christianity, and we learned that the ancient practices of astrology were outlawed in the West as being paganistic, Polytheism gave way to monotheism, one god versus many gods. So in the West, astrology was effectively put on pause with the approach and downfall of the Roman Empire in 476 AD. However, while astrology took an extended hiatus in the West, it began to flourish around its original roots in the Middle East with the rise of Islam and Arabic astrologers. Even beyond astrology, a litany of achievements in mathematics, astronomy, and engineering were being achieved from a period that ran long and far into the 1200s in the Middle East. New textbooks on astrology were written and translated from the earlier periods, and so the scholars of Arabia are credited with preserving the astrological learnings and knowledge that Europe had lost during their 800-year hiatus from astrology. And so, 800 years pass after St. Augustine had declared that astrology was satanic and of the devil. At that point, we find another influential member of the Catholic Church of that time, St. Thomas Aquinas, who walks back some of the earlier condemnations from his predecessor. St. Thomas Aquinas defies St. Augustine by saying, the celestial bodies, the moon, the sun, the stars, are the cause of all that takes place in the sublunar world. Universities in Western Europe begin offering courses in astrology. And then, in the mid-1300s, Europe is struck by one of history's deadliest plagues. The Black Death, which is recorded as the most fatal pandemic in human history, wipes out anywhere from 75 to 200 million people around the world. We learned that Europe's monarchs reached out to their astrologers to understand the causes of the Black Death, and that there were some forecasts that aligned with the devastation that was occurring. But very much like the Roman emperors before them, some European monarchs took issue with negative forecasts that they may have received. And once again, astrologers that delivered those negative horoscopes paid with their lives. History notes at least one English astrologer who was drawn and quartered in 1441 for giving an English king a bad horoscope. Following the Black Death, Europe experiences a rebirth. It is the beginning of the European Renaissance. And with the Renaissance, even Catholic popes are now consulting astrologers in the Vatican City, very much like their neighbors, who include the ruling wealthy families of Italy, like the Medicis, who are consulting historically renowned astrologers such as Nostradamus. In England, Queen Elizabeth I has her own astrologer, Dr. Dee, in her royal court as a key advisor. The poet William Shakespeare infuses astrology into his greatest works, whether it be his star-crossed lovers in Romeo and Juliet, a play modeled on the sign of Gemini, or his allusion to the Ides of March, the prophecy of the assassination of Caesar in his play Julius Caesar. We see that astrology is knitted deep into the fabric of the European Renaissance culture with these key figures in their societies. However, controversy does continue to hinder both astronomy and astrology, with the Catholic Church being critical of any science which says the Earth is not the center of the universe. In the mid-1500s, the Church would condemn the astronomer Nicholas Copernicus as a heretic for arguing that the Earth revolved around the Sun. The Church banned his books. These bans would last for 300 years. However, other astronomers would follow Copernicus and prove his theory. Galileo Galilei would further prove that the Earth was not the center of the universe, and Johannes Kepler would refine the mathematics of planetary motion. By the time we reach the age of reason and the Enlightenment in the 1700s, much has transpired and advanced within the realms of astrology and astronomy. Isaac Newton would define the laws of gravity, which would more precisely govern the movement of the heavenly bodies in the nightly sky. Through mathematics, Newton would identify the mechanics and invisible forces of gravity which held up all of the firmaments of the universe. But what's interesting is that with all of these burgeoning scientific achievements underway, we once again see astrology lose some of its luster. However, as proven time and time again, astrology may appear gone, but it's never gone for long. As we advance through the 1700s, we find on another continent, in a whole new world, two different Benjamins are publishing almanacs that are filled with astrological information and hints concerning the lunar cycles, the weather patterns, and ocean tides. There's Benjamin Franklin, who publishes Poor Richard's Almanac under a pseudonym and achieves a great level of fame, success, and wealth in doing so. Then there's Benjamin Banneker, who is counted as one of America's first great African-American intellectuals. Banneker, like Franklin, also authors almanacs, but under his own name, and to great success as well. Of particular interest to those born under the sign of Scorpio is that Benjamin Banneker was self-taught in the areas of astronomy and mathematics. And Banneker was a triple Scorpio, born on November 9th, who had both his moon and the planet Mercury in Scorpio at the time of his birth. Moving on through the remainder of the 1700s and 1800s, we find new planets being discovered, Uranus in 1781 and Neptune in 1832. These new planets would force astrologers of these times to realign themselves with a new reality. And as we enter the 20th century and the 1900s, we see that astrology's latest controversy arises when astrology becomes linked with fortune-telling, seances, and psychic scams, which were illegal. America's first well-known popular astrologer was Evangeline Adams. In 1899, Adams predicted that the hotel where she was staying in New York City was in imminent danger. The following day, it burned to the ground. Adams would go on to become very popular. However, she did hit a brief hurdle in 1914 when she was charged with fortune-telling, which again, at that time, was illegal. As a part of her trial, Adams was asked to write a horoscope for an anonymous person in the court who just so happened to be the son of the judge. However, the judge found this horoscope to be so accurate that he declared that Evangeline Adams had raised astrology to the dignity of an exact science. By 1930, Evangeline had a radio program with listeners and astrological converts across the United States. Back over in Europe, and at the same time thereabout in 1930, an innovation in horoscopes was occurring in London. An assistant apprenticing astrologer by the name of R.H. Naylor took on a short assignment to write a horoscope for a London newspaper, the Sunday Express. In Naylor's first effort, he was credited with predicting the crash of a blimp in France where 48 people died. Given Naylor's accuracy, the editor at the Sunday Express asked him to write a column periodically on his predictions for all of its readers. Here's where the innovation occurs. Naylor approached the task by writing individual horoscopes based on each sun sign. It was a huge success for that newspaper, with that paper's circulation taking off and soaring. And so began the modern horoscope writing that we know today, where you can pick up a newspaper, a magazine, you can visit a website, or have an app on your phone and get your weekly, monthly, and sometimes even daily horoscope based on any one of 12 zodiac signs. These are the key pieces of the zodiac firmament as we know them today. For the remainder of the 20th century, you'll see cases where astrology was used to predict the rise and fall of Adolf Hitler. You'll see cases where an astrologer was championed by the Nazis when their forecasts were good. Then you'll see cases where the Nazis sent an astrologer ultimately to their death in a concentration camp when the astrologer's predictions were bad. So we can stop, look back, and appreciate how astrology has influenced ancient pharaohs, monarchs, popes, dictators, and tyrants. We can also see that it has had its way on at least one modern American president in the form of Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan once faced ridicule for his wife Nancy soliciting forecasts from an astrologer, popular astrologer of the times, Joan Quigley, in the 1980s. The privilege that we have today is that astrology, which was once only available to the ancient rulers and potentates, is now available to the common folks and all of mankind for consumption. It's easy to say it's a waste of time and that it shouldn't be given much respect or credibility. And that's the beauty of living in a free society. With astrology, you can do with it what you please. That's up for you to decide. All I know is that from where we stand here today, in the 2020s, with the generation of millennials and Gen Z folks who have more tattoos of zodiac signs on their bodies than they do of signs of the cross or stars of David, it's very easy to see which direction society is going. As we like to do here at Masters of the Zodiac, let me share a quick mnemonic outline for what we've covered today. It's just a short, brief, arbitrary phrase. Arp Seek Roca Edom. We started with where it all began, with the letter A for Africa. Then we moved on to discuss the letter R for River Valley civilizations, the letter B for Babylonians, letter C and I for Chinese and Indian astrology respectively. Then we moved on to the letter G for the Greeks, the letter R for the Romans, and the letters C and A for the roles of the early Christians and Arabs. For the phrase Itam, we would refer to the letter E for the European Revival or the European Renaissance, followed by the letter A for the age of reason and enlightenment, then the letter T for the turn of the 20th century, and lastly, the letter M for modern current times. Again, that short arbitrary phrase is Arp Seek Roca Edom. And so, if we can recall just a brief history of astrology and answer the question, is astrology real or fake? Then we will be one step closer to becoming masters of the zodiac. So, no matter what your age or zodiac sign, Masters of the Zodiac is here for you. Hope that you've enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching, and if you haven't done so already, please share, comment, like, and subscribe to this channel. This video completes our series of the keys to astrology, but we want to invite you to continue your odyssey of understanding and mastering the zodiac. If you haven't done so already, take a deeper dive into understanding your own zodiac intensity by checking out any of the 12 videos that we have available based on your zodiac sign. Don't miss out. And as always, we want to encourage you to visit our website at mzods.com for free reports that are specifically tailored to you and designed to meet your needs. Just sign up at mzods.com to receive your free report today. And by signing up, you'll also be eligible for special contests, prizes, and giveaways that may occur from time to time. So don't miss out. Stop waiting. Start doing. At Masters of the Zodiac, we track the best of the best astrologers and apps that are available. If you've had a great experience with an astrologer or an astrology app, let us know. If you've had a bad or horrible experience, let us know. Drop comments here or on YouTube, or drop them at mzods.com, where you'll find a treasure trove of insights and reviews about the best astrologers and astrology apps on the market. And also, don't forget to show your zodiac pride. You'll find some of the best gear to let the world know exactly who you are based on your zodiac sign. Yes, visit our online store at mzods.com for the best zodiac swag on the internet, and check back periodically for the latest updates. So until next time, please stay safe and have an excellent journey on this adventure that we call life. Until next time, I'm Brian LeVar, and this is Masters of the Zodiac.
Follow Brian on Instagram and Twitter at BRYLAVAR.